Hi everybody, my name is Mike Kowis and I'm here today to teach you how to self-publish a book using my 14-step process. Now you might ask yourself, why should I listen to this bozo, right? Well, I've published 2 books in the last 6 months and both have won or been selected for book awards. And last month I sold about 100 books. So not terrible, not the next J.K. Rowling, but I'm on my way at least, right? So when I wrote this book, it was based on the steps I took to self-publish my first book last October. And that book is about college teaching tips. It was called Engaging College Students, a Fun and Edgy Guide for Professors. So the 14 steps that I used for that book can be applied, and I applied them to this book and any book, fiction, nonfiction, you name it. So it's really quite simple. If you've never published before and you have an idea for a book, or maybe you've written the book, you're trying to figure out your next steps. How do I go about getting it from the computer screen, right, and onto an actual book that I can either buy on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com or one of those formats. Maybe you're interested in doing an e-book, or you're doing a paperback like this, or a hardcover, right? I can tell you exactly how to do that, and I will today in this short video. Hopefully this video will give you some inspiration to go ahead and do it. It's a lot of great advantages to self-publishing. There are some disadvantages, but we'll go over those in another video. Today, we're just going to go through the basic steps. So let's go into these, shall we? The first step is just finish the book, right? That's pretty simple. What does that mean, though, finish the book? Well, there's more to it than just hitting the end on the keyboard, right? You're going to have to actually go out and find an editor, and this is a key point that a lot of newbies don't understand. I'm an attorney by trade. That's what I do on my daily basis. I've done this for 20 years. I consider myself a pretty decent writer, but even I felt the need to go get a copy editor and make sure that this book and the first book was in tip-top shape, ready for publication. And I'm so glad I did, because an extra set of eyes is key. The copy editor, a good copy editor, can find not only spelling errors and grammar, errors, but they can also find repetition. If you use the same word 100 times, you may want to find a variation or another phrase. Also, if you've repeated the same point in your book a number of times, which is very common, they can also help you cut that down. So a good editor is worth their weight in salt, and actually gold. So I would highly recommend you start with a good editor. The second point is you want to create a business. Now, this is not for everybody, I'll admit. If you're planning to just do one book, you can skip this step. But if you're planning to do more than one book, or you just want to make sure you can deduct all your expenses come tax time, then a good tip is to create a business. Now, it doesn't have to be a expensive C corporation and worry about all the filings that go with that. You can do a simple sole proprietorship. Now, you have to check with your CPA or attorney before you do this, but in Texas, at least, a sole proprietorship is very, very simple to create. All I had to do in my state was to go to the county courthouse and file a one-page document. It's called a Doing Business As form. You fill that out, and to fill it out first, I had to pick a name. Now, that sounds simple enough. You just pick any name, right? Well, it turns out picking a name is not that simple. You're trying to find a name that's not already chosen. You don't want to infringe somebody else's trade name. So you're going to scour the internet. You're going to look for Google, and you're going to look at, if you don't find it on Google, you can look at the U.S. Trademark Office, and they also have a search. You can go in there for free, and you can search for names and try to find names that are not used. And I try to find a name for my business, Lecture Pro Publishing, and make sure it was not taken before I came up with that name. So once you come up with your name, you go down to the county courthouse and you file the Doing Business As form, and you pay the fee. That's the process in my state. In some states, you have to put a notice out in the newspaper. and do that for like 4 weeks or something like that. In my state, that wasn't necessary. So I file the paperwork, and then I get a copy of that, and I go to my bank, and I open a new bank account, and you can either get a debit card or a credit card or both in the name of that sole proprietorship. So you now have a way to track your expenses and your income through the business's checking account. And my name was Lecture Pro Publishing for my business, and I set up a separate checking account for that, and I only use that checking account for expenses related to my books. And that helps come tax time, believe me. So that's the first step. Once you have a business, that's step 2. Step 3 is you need to buy a domain name. So you want to go out and find a domain name. There's GoDaddy.com, there's Bluehost.com, there's a whole bunch of services out there where they will provide you a domain name for a fee. And you'll have, it's not just buying the domain name, you need to set up an account where you actually pay for things like SSL service, and which is to the subscription service. And then there's a privacy. I highly recommend you pay the extra fee for privacy so that nobody can discover who owns your website. If you want to maintain that privacy, you'll pay an extra fee. So I did that. I set up a 3-year plan with Bluehost.com for my website, which is www.engagingcollegestudents.com. That happens to be the name of my first book. So that's what I did. I set up my domain name. Now, I'd never done this before, and this was all new territory for me, something I was very unsure of. So I went out and I found a YouTube video by Joanna Penn, Penn, and she has a bunch of very helpful videos. I highly recommend the creativepen.com, which is her website, and she has a lot of helpful videos for aspiring authors. And one of the videos, which is available on YouTube, is how to create a website, right? And so she did that, and it's a 30-minute video. I watched it one time, and then I went to Bluehost.com and created my website page for my book, my first book. And you can do this too. It's really not that hard. So keep that in mind. Now that's step 3. Step 4 is to buy something called your ISBN number. ISBN numbers are assigned by, you can buy them in 1 or 10 or even larger numbers. I bought a set of 10 because it's much cheaper to buy 10 than just 1. And if you're going to publish in ebook and or paperback and or hardcover, or perhaps you're going to publish in different languages, you're going to need multiple ISBN numbers. For my first book, I had an ebook through Kindle, which is sold on Amazon, and I had an ebook through all other types of books, such as Nook and the Nook book, which is available on BarnesandNoble.com, and there's other ones out there. And so I had an ISBN number for both of those, and I needed one for my paperback, and I needed one for my hardcover. So I had like 4 different ISBN numbers right there. So that's why, and now if you buy your ISBN numbers, you need to go to the Bowker's website, which is myidentifiers.com, and they're usually sold for something like $125 each or $295 for 10. Much cheaper, obviously, to buy them in a pack of 10, and that's what I do. Next is, after you buy your ISBN numbers, if you decide to go with a print book, such as this, hardcover or paperback, then you might consider filing your book with the U.S. Library of Congress. The U.S. Library of Congress is in Washington, D.C., of course, and that's where they house all the famous books and the no-name books by people like me that you never heard of, Mike Kowis. And so I thought it'd be an honor to have my book housed at the U.S. Library of Congress and preserved forever amongst all the famous authors, right? And so on my own, I thought it'd be a professional thing to do. I decided to do that. I applied for the Library of Congress number, and it's called an LCCN number, and you do that by going to the Library of Congress website, and you apply for it. It's totally free. It takes about a week, to get all the paperwork in. But you do it all online. There's no paperwork to mail in. When you're finished publishing your book, Okay, when you finish publishing your book, that's when you're going to go and mail in one copy of this to the U.S. Library of Congress. All right, so the next step is to apply for a shipping discount. Honestly, you can skip this. I happen to use U.S. Post Office for most of my mailings. If you ship books to the U.S. Post Office, the best thing to do is to use media mail. It's still subject to tracking, so you can track the shipment, but it does take longer. It takes about a week instead of 2 or 3 days, right? So it will take a little longer, but it'll save you some money. For example, on my very first shipment, I shipped 80 books. I did not use media mail. I wish I had. It would have been cheaper. But I did want to get my books out there quick. There were review copies. I was sending out a batch of 80 packages. Each one contained one book. I would have saved about $1 a package had I used media mail. And it still would have been trackable, just would have took a few extra days. And I could have saved 80 bucks. So that's a little lesson there, save you some bucks. Next thing is you want to create a social media platform. So here we are, we're on step 6, and you need to create a social media platform. Now that's easier said than done. A lot of folks immediately get scared when they think social media platform. What the heck is that? It's very simple. You need to create a buzz about your upcoming book. And there's several ways to do this. What I recommend doing is find some platforms that you're comfortable with. This could be Twitter, it could be Facebook, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Pinterest, or any of the other numbers. There's a whole bunch of them. Find the ones that you're most comfortable with, at least a couple of them, and the ones that you feel like you can frequently go to once or twice a week at least, and check in on these things and try to post something, answer questions and that sort of thing. And then when you get closer to actually publishing your book, I highly recommend this, you're going to hire someone to create the cover, right? That's going to be another step when we get to in a few minutes. When you get to that stage, whoever you hire, they can give you 2 or 3 or a whole host of other options. When you narrow it down to the top 2 or 3 designs for your cover, post those on your website and then put links out to your social media so that, and ask people, hey, vote. Let me know, what do you like? Do you like option A or B or C or whatever's there? And you would be surprised how much interest you'll get, how many hits, how much web traffic. And it's a great way to create buzz about your book. You'll get a lot of opinions. For me, I found with my 2 books, I was always able to get about half the people that liked one option and half liked the other. The third option, they didn't seem to care much about, in my instance anyway. So it helped me narrow it down to 2. But from there, I kind of relied on my cover designer to help me pick the one that he thought was most marketable. Because you're not just looking for a pretty design or something that's cute. You want to make sure it looks good with your genre, and it's professional looking, of course, not too busy, not too distracting. There's a lot of things to consider, and it has to look good in a small picture, because if you're planning to put this on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, it's going to start out as a very small picture, and then hopefully if it catches their eye, the reader will click on it and expand it, and they'll see the full book, the full cover. So that's something you want to consider. So the next step is to pick a distributor and formats. So for me, on my first book, I went with, like I said, ebook, paperback, and a hardcover. I wanted hardcover for a couple of reasons. The main one was I was hoping to make my book, which again was about college teaching tips, available on to libraries. I was hoping that university libraries or other libraries would purchase my book, and I thought it would be a nice if they had the hardcover available. And so I picked Ingram Spark because they do hardcovers, whereas the affiliate company of Amazon called CreateSpace and also Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, both of those are owned by Amazon. They do not currently do hardcover. So I picked Ingram Spark to do my hardcover. And I also picked the other one, which is the Amazon companies, Create Space to do my paperback, and KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, to do my ebook for a Kindle. And then Ingram Spark not only did my hardcover, they also did my ebook in non-Kindle form. So for the Nook or the Apple iBook or whatever, you can do it through Ingram Spark. So the next step is to hire your cover designer. That's the design that this you find. And what you'll find the process is they'll go look at stock photos, right? They'll find stock photos which are available on stockphoto.com and lots of other websites. They'll pick one, they'll buy a license, which is permission to use it. And this is a typical way that it's done. It's not the only way, but this is one way it's done. And the designer will insert this picture, which I picked out. It was a stock photo, and they'll design the title and they'll put your name wherever you wanted. I preferred mine at the bottom, and then they'll design the picture of the cover that way. Now, if you're just doing an ebook, you only need the front side, obviously. If you're doing a paperback and or hardcover, then you want to also have obviously the back cover. And then this is where I had my photo. You have a good chance to put your photo there. You put the barcode here. You can also put the price under the barcode. I prefer not to do that, just in case I ever wanted to adjust the price for sales or whatnot. You don't have to adjust the cover. So I don't put my price here. And then you put your short sales description. This is a great place also to put blurbs, or what they call blurbs, which is when you get a famous or semi-famous author or celebrity to write something about your book. You send them a review copy and you say, hey, would you mind reviewing it and give me a little blurb, a little couple of sentences that says what you think of my book. And if it's good and you like it, then you can print it right here with their permission. And so this is a good place to put blurbs. I didn't get any from my books. I just didn't know any authors or famous people. So I just went with the sales description, which describes generally what the book's about, and then a description about myself. So that was what I did. And then they'll also design the spine, which is very simple because this one's very small. So there's nothing in it. My first book is much thicker, and it has a spine with the title and the author and then LPP on the side. So that's the process there. After you do the cover design, you're going to hire a graphic designer. The graphic designer is going to do two things. For me, they did two things. One is to design the interior pages. And what does that mean? That means they're going to find the formatting and the page numbers and put the title or your name at the top. They're also going to put how much spacing to put above the, on the chapter headings, and they're going to lay it all out for you so it looks nice and neat the way you want it. Another thing they're going to do is convert it to an ebook, and they'll do the files. Now you can skip that step if you have certain programs. There are certain programs that allow you to go ahead and make from the program, like from Microsoft Word is what I used, but there are other Scrivener and other types of software where you can actually print out the document that you need for the ebook file. So you don't have to hire a graphic designer to do that for you. I opted to go ahead and just write my book, my manuscript, in Microsoft Word, and then pay a graphic designer to convert it to ebook and also do the interior design work. Now, the next step is to buy an editorial book review. Now, this is not mandatory, but I do recommend it. There's Kirkus, and there's also Clarion and some other more expensive and well-known editorial review services. And basically, you pay them to give a review. Now, when you pay them, it doesn't guarantee you'll get a awesome review. They're going to give you an honest review. If there's a lot of typos or problems, they'll work with you and say, hey, you may want to go back and have this edited or cleaned up, and then come back and we'll review it again. Or maybe they'll just say, look, we're going to give you 3 stars out of 5 or whatever. And your option, you can't make them change their review, but you can ask them not to publish it. So you're not paying for a 5-star review because you control nothing. The only thing you control is whether they publish that or not. And so there is a more reasonable, I thought, more reasonable expense. It's called Publishers Daily Review, and they charge less than $100 when I did it. And so I've had both of my books published, and I did that, and that helps a lot because when you first publish your book and put it on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com or whatever format online, you usually don't have many reviews, if any. And so it helps to have at least an editorial review at the bottom that some third party has looked at your book and said, here are the highlights, here's what's good or whatever. So that's a good thing. The next thing you're going to do, once you have all your files made from the cover designer and the graphic designer, you're going to upload those to either CreateSpace or KDP or Ingram Spark or whatever other format you choose. And you'll just go through their website and you'll fill in the blank. You'll have to come up with a title, subtitle if there is one, the pricing, a sales description, etc. So you'll fill in all the blanks and you'll upload your files. And then the next step is to register with the U.S. Copyright Office. Now, in the United States, you automatically have copyright as soon as you create the document. Normally speaking, there's exceptions if you work for an employer, things like that. But generally speaking, under U.S. copyright law, you do not have to register with the state or federal government to have copyright protection. However, I do recommend that you file for U.S. copyright, and the reason I do that is because it's cheap insurance. That's it. It's $35, I think, is what I paid, and I've registered both of mine. And you go through the online form, and it takes about 9 months. I think my first book, I got the letter back in 7 months. I'm still waiting for my second one, as I just filed it a few months ago. And so you have to file that within 3 months of the book, and then mail in 2 copies, I believe it is, to the Library of Congress. And then you'll wait, and they'll eventually, if everything's right, they'll send you a letter saying you have your U.S. copyright registration done. And then the last step, and I put last step because this is the order that I went through in my 2 books, but honestly, you can do this last step much sooner. In fact, I recommend you do it much sooner. At least be thinking about this last step, and that's marketing the book. And that's by far the hardest step. Ask any author out there, and they'll say writing the book, and if they chose to self-publish, self-publishing the book, those 2 tasks, while challenging, are not near as difficult as marketing the book. Why is marketing so hard? Well, that's a great question. What I like to think is you can control 100% of writing the book. That's all you. That's you and the computer. You're staring at the laptop every day and you're trying to come up with a product that you think will entertain and or inform the audience. And so that's all you. When you self-publish, that's mostly you because you're in control of the full process. You make all the decisions. You hire the people that you want to hire, and you make the ultimate decision. So again, within your control. The last step, marketing, is completely out of your control. All you can do is hopefully put your name out there, put your book out there, let people know what it's about, and say, hey, these are the benefits from buying this book. It's very entertaining, or it's very informative. It will help you do X, Y, and Z. So there you go. That's all you can do. And it's up to the reader to actually decide whether they want to buy it or not. So that's it. That's all my video. I'll probably do other videos in the future, and I will talk more about the actual steps in more detail. But for now, this is at least an overview of the 14 steps that I followed, and I welcome you to check out my book. It's at www.engagingcollegesstudents.com/self-publishing-guide. Or you can just look for the 14 steps to publish a book on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. It's out there. And so all the details are in there. It walks through all the 14 steps in this little book. It's very affordable. Try to make it affordable as possible to help as many people as possible. If you have any questions, you can always email me at mike.kowis.esq@gmail.com. And that's all I have. And thank you, and happy publishing.